The Olympus Mons Colonial Festival was supposed to be a celebration of human perseverance. Thousands of colonists gathered in the massive transparent dome, their breath creating a light mist against the carefully engineered atmosphere. Holographic displays danced with images of terraforming progress, showing the gradual transformation of Mars from a dead planet to a potential second home for humanity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the edge of the main hall, her dark eyes scanning the crowd. At 35, she was the youngest lead terraforming engineer in the Mars Colonial Initiative, a fact that both impressed and irritated her senior colleagues. Her latest project, a breakthrough in atmospheric stabilization, was set to be announced today, a potential game-changer for human colonization efforts. The first explosion came without warning. A brilliant flash of light erupted just outside the dome, so intense that for a moment, day turned to searing white. The sound followed milliseconds later, a thunderous boom that momentarily silenced the festive crowd. Elena's training kicked in immediately. Her hand instinctively reached for the emergency communication device on her wrist. "Sector Control, report." She barked into the comm. Silence. Then chaos. A second explosion ripped through the western section of the colony, reaching the dome's outer layer. Atmosphere began to vent with a terrifying whoosh, creating a sound like a dying titan. Colonists screamed, some frozen in shock, others scrambling for emergency shelters. Elena grabbed the arm of her lead research assistant, Marco, pulling him close. "Data core," she shouted over the pandemonium. "Now." They ran, weaving through panicking crowds, Elena's mind racing faster than her feet. These weren't geological explosions or equipment malfunctions. The precision, the targeting. This was an attack. Another massive impact struck the colony's primary reactor complex. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and for a moment, Elena thought the entire mountain would collapse. Emergency systems flickered. Red warning lights, mixed with the remnants of festive holographics, created a nightmarish canvas of destruction. They reached the secure research lab, a reinforced bunker designed to withstand extreme conditions. Marco's hands shook as he input the access codes. Elena saw movement through the lab's external cameras, massive shapes moving in the sky. Definitely not human spacecraft. Alien vessels, sleek and predatory, were systematically dismantling the human colony. "We need to preserve the research," Elena muttered, her fingers flying across multiple data terminals. She began emergency data transfers, compressing decades of terraforming research, atmospheric studies, and her team's most critical discoveries. A sudden impact near their location sent Marco sprawling. Elena caught a glimpse of him, blood trickling from a head wound, eyes still conscious but unfocused. She grabbed the emergency medical kit, quickly applying a stabilization patch. The mysterious data cache she'd been analyzing for weeks, a set of anomalous readings from deep planetary surveys, suddenly seemed more important than ever. Something about those readings now felt connected to this attack, though she couldn't explain why. As destruction reigned outside, Elena completed the data transfer. Her fingers paused over a final command, discovering an encrypted message buried within the research files, something that definitely wasn't part of their original data. A message, hidden, waiting. The lab's reinforced walls shuddered. Outside, the Olympus Mons colony, humanity's pride, a testament to human engineering and determination, was being systematically erased from existence. Elena Rodriguez looked at the unconscious Marco, at the encrypted message, and then at the lab's external cameras showing alien vessels continuing their merciless assault. This was more than an attack. This was the beginning of something far more complex. And humanity's response was just beginning. Darkness and the smell of burnt circuitry greeted Elena when she regained consciousness. Her head throbbed, a sharp pain radiating from her temple. Marco lay nearby, still unconscious but breathing. Emergency lighting cast a dim red glow across the shattered research lab. She crawled to the main console, fingers trembling as she activated the backup power system. The encrypted message she discovered earlier burned in her mind, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Outside the reinforced lab windows, Mars looked like a graveyard. Debris from the colony's destruction scattered across the rust-colored landscape. In the distance, alien vessels continued their methodical sweep, hunting for any remaining survivors. A communication chirp broke the silence. Alina's hand instinctively reached for her comm unit, but it was damaged. The sound came from an old emergency beacon, a backup system she designed years ago as part of her doctoral research on colonial communication resilience. Survivors. Sector 7. Need immediate extraction, a distorted voice crackled. Alina's training kicked in. The aliens believed they'd eliminated the colony, which meant any survivors had a narrow window of opportunity. She quickly assessed their situation. Limited medical supplies, compromised life support, and an unknown number of alien patrols outside. Marco groaned, slowly regaining consciousness. A deep gash on his forehead told the story of their narrow escape. Alina. He mumbled, "What happened?" "Attack," she responded tersely, already connecting diagnostic equipment to their remaining systems. "We need to move." The lab's environmental controls showed critical damage. Oxygen was depleting, and external temperatures were dropping. They had hours at most before the harsh Martian environment would kill them. Alina began decrypting the mysterious message found in the data core. Her fingers moved with a surgeon's precision, breaking through layers of complex encryption. What emerged was not what she expected. A set of geological survey data mixed with bizarre quantum resonance readings that made no sense. Something caught her eye. A pattern in the data, subtle, almost invisible, unless you knew exactly what to look for. The attack wasn't random. It was targeted. A scraping sound outside the lab froze her in place. Alien tracking technology. They were searching, methodically eliminating any remaining signs of human life. "We need to move," Alina whispered to Marco. "And we need to do it without being detected." She accessed the terraforming tunnel network, a complex underground system she'd helped design during the colony's initial construction. A network of maintenance passages, atmospheric regulation tubes, and emergency transit routes that spiderwebbed beneath the Martian surface. The aliens didn't know about these tunnels. They couldn't know. Marco looked pale, barely holding onto consciousness. Alina grabbed emergency medical supplies, a portable data core containing their research, and the decryption key to the mysterious message. A shadow passed outside the lab's window. Sleek. Predatory. Hunting. Alina checked her emergency toolkit. Modified mining laser, emergency oxygen supplies, a prototype atmospheric stabilization device she'd been developing. Tools of survival, now potential weapons. The first rule of terraforming, she remembered from her early training, was adaptation. Transform the impossible into the possible. As an alien scanning beam swept past their hidden location, Alina Rodriguez began to formulate a plan. They would survive. They would understand. And then, they would fight back. The terraforming tunnels were a labyrinth of human innovation. Pipes that once regulated atmospheric pressure now became their lifeline. Alina guided Marco through the narrow passages, her hand-modified mining laser serving as both light source and potential weapon. "We're losing oxygen," Marco whispered, his breath labored. Alina checked the atmospheric readings. He was right. The tunnels were designed for maintenance, not long-term survival. Each breath was a calculated risk. Their progress was slow. Every 50 meters, Alina would stop, carefully analyzing the tunnel's structural integrity and checking for potential alien scanning signals. The mysterious encrypted message continued to haunt her, fragments of data that suggested something far more complex than a simple invasion. A distant vibration made them freeze. Alien tracking technology. Close. Alina pulled Marco into a small maintenance alcove, her hand covering his mouth to suppress any sound. The walls of the tunnel seemed to breathe with tension. Through her modified comm unit, a desperate hack of their remaining technology, she picked up fragmented alien communications. Specimens, genetic variants, unexpected resilience. The words were partial, broken, but they meant something. As the alien scanning technology passed their location, Alina noticed something peculiar. The scan was searching for specific biological markers, not just random destruction, but targeted extraction. When the immediate danger passed, she pulled out the data core, connecting it to a makeshift power supply cobbled together from emergency tunneling equipment. The encrypted message began to take shape, a complex series of planetary survey data mixed with genetic sequencing information. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. Marco, despite his weakness, looked over her shoulder. "Those are genetic markers, but they're not just human. They're modified." Alina's mind raced. Her team's terraforming research had always pushed the boundaries of human adaptation. They'd been experimenting with genetic modifications to help humans survive in extreme planetary conditions. But this was different. The tunnel suddenly vibrated with the sound of distant explosions. More human colonies, more destruction. "We need to warn the others," Marco said. Alina knew the chances were slim. Communication networks were destroyed. Colonies were being systematically eliminated. But humans had always been masters of improvisation. She began dismantling nearby maintenance equipment. A cooling system here, a pressure regulator there, pieces that could be transformed. "What are you doing?" Marco asked. "Making weapons," Alina responded, her voice cold and determined. The mining laser became the core of something new. Emergency communication arrays were stripped and rewired. Atmospheric regulation equipment transformed into potential defensive systems. Outside the tunnels, Mars burned. Human colonies, decades of work, hopes and dreams were being erased. But inside these tunnels, something was brewing. A resistance. A transformation. Alina Rodriguez was no longer just a terraforming engineer. She was becoming something else entirely. A prototype. A weapon. A hope. The first true weapon of human survival was about to be born. The underground network of tunnels had become a living nightmare. 3 days of constant movement, limited oxygen, and perpetual fear had stripped away everything but pure survival. Marco's condition worsened, his body fighting an unseen battle against radiation exposure and the harsh Martian environment. Alina's modified equipment told a story of desperation. The makeshift scanner, cobbled together from terraforming sensors and emergency communication arrays, picked up scattered transmissions, other colonies, other survivors. Each message a ghost, a whisper of hope rapidly fading. "We can't keep going," Marco wheezed, his hand pressed against the tunnel wall. She knew he was right, but giving up was not an option. The encrypted message continued to haunt her. Fragments of genetic data, planetary survey information, and bizarre quantum resonance readings that made less sense with each analysis. Something about the aliens' attack went beyond simple invasion. They were searching for something specific. A sudden tremor shook the tunnel. Distant explosions, more colonies falling. Alina's mind drifted to her past. Her parents, pioneering geneticists who had dedicated their lives to human adaptation. Their research had always been controversial, pushing the boundaries of human potential. Genetic modifications that could help humanity survive in the most extreme environments. She pulled out a small, hidden data chip, a personal project. Her parents' final research, incomplete and highly classified. The chip contained something impossible. Genetic modification sequences that went far beyond anything officially sanctioned. Adaptations that could fundamentally change human survival capabilities. Marco's breathing became more labored. The radiation was killing him, slowly but inexorably. A decision crystallized in Alina's mind. The research chip, her parents' ultimate project, a genetic modification protocol designed for extreme planetary survival. She could save Marco, but the cost would be unprecedented. The tunnel's emergency medical kit contained advanced gene splicing equipment, originally designed for emergency biological repairs during long-term colonization missions. Alina's hands moved with a surgeon's precision, her scientific training battling against the moral implications of what she was about to do. Marco looked at her, understanding dawning in his pain-filled eyes. "Do it," he whispered. The gene splicing procedure was brutal. Marco's body convulsed, his genetic structure rewriting itself at a cellular level. The modified terraforming equipment hummed, converting the tunnel into an impromptu genetic reconstruction chamber. Outside, another explosion rocked the Martian surface. As Marco's transformation progressed, Elena discovered something in the encrypted message. A coordinate, a specific location that the aliens seemed desperate to reach. Something her parents' research was connected to. The tunnel went silent. Marco's body stopped moving. For a moment, Elena thought she had killed him. Then his eyes opened. They were different, fully aware, enhanced. The first truly adapted human weapon was born. And the aliens had no idea what was coming. Marco was no longer entirely human. The genetic modification coursed through his body like liquid lightning, transforming him into something unprecedented. His breathing was different, measured, controlled. Eyes that had been dull with pain now burned with an intense, almost mechanical awareness. Elena watched, a mixture of scientific fascination and primal fear coursing through her veins. "Status report," she commanded, activating her modified scanner. Marco's response came not in words, but in a precise data stream that flooded Elena's communication device. Biological readings, environmental analyses, spectral scans, all processed and transmitted faster than any human system could manage. The terraforming tunnel suddenly felt too small, too confining. "We need to move," Marco spoke, his voice a strange hybrid of human inflection and computational precision. Alien patrol vectors indicate a concentration of activity near the Valles Marineris research outpost. Elena's mind raced. The outpost had been her team's secondary research station, a location that now seemed to hold more significance than ever. As they navigated through the tunnel network, Marco's enhanced abilities became increasingly apparent. He could detect minute vibrations, predict structural weaknesses, and calculate optimal movement paths with superhuman accuracy. The encrypted message from her parents' research chip began to make sense. Pieces of a puzzle that had always seemed impossible were falling into place. An alien scanning beam swept across their tunnel section, where once they would have frozen in terror, now Marco simply adjusted. His modified genetic structure absorbed and refracted the scanning energy, rendering them invisible. "How?" Elena whispered. "Adaptive camouflage," Marco responded. "The genetic modification doesn't just enhance, it learns, evolves." They emerged from the tunnels into a landscape of destruction. The Martian surface looked like a battlefield. Human colonies reduced to smoldering ruins, alien vessels moving with predatory precision. But something had changed. Marco raised his hand. What was once a human arm now seemed like a living piece of advanced technology. A modified mining laser, previously a tool of planetary reconstruction, transformed into a weapon of surgical precision. The first alien patrol never saw them coming. The attack was over in seconds. Not a battle, but a systematic elimination. Marco moved with a combination of human strategy and machine-like efficiency. Each movement calculated, each action purposeful. Elena realized they had created something entirely new. Not just a weapon, not just a survivor. A prototype of human potential. As they approached the Valles Marineris outpost, the encrypted message's final coordinates became clear. This wasn't just about survival. This was about understanding. About discovering why the aliens had chosen to attack humanity. Marco stopped suddenly, his enhanced senses detecting something Elena couldn't perceive. "We're not alone," he said. And for the first time since the invasion began, Elena felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The Valles Marineris research outpost was both a tomb and a sanctuary. Massive geological formations loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the devastated landscape. Marco's enhanced senses picked up something Alina's human perception could never detect. Faint electromagnetic signatures that didn't match the alien technology they'd encountered before. "There's a signal," Marco said, his voice a calculated blend of human emotion and computational precision. Buried. Waiting. Alina's modified scanner began to interface with Marco's enhanced perception. The data flow was extraordinary, layers of information revealing themselves like geological strata. Her parents' research chip, now fully integrated into their survival strategy, began to pulse with an almost living energy. The signal led them to a hidden section of the research outpost, a vault. Not an alien construction, but something definitively human, and older than any of their current colony efforts. Marco's modified hand interfaced with the vault's security system. Quantum encryption, biological authentication, layers of protection that would have stopped any normal human. But Marco was anything but normal. The vault opened. Inside, a complete shock. Hundreds of data cores, research documents, genetic modification protocols that made Alina's recent work look like primitive sketches, and at the center, a holographic projection that flickered to life, the face of Alina's mother. "If you're seeing this," the projection began, "humanity's first line of defense has been triggered." The story unfolded like a nightmare. Humanity had been preparing for this invasion for decades, not out of paranoia, but out of a calculated understanding of cosmic probabilities. The genetic modification protocols weren't just survival techniques. They were a species-level defense mechanism. The aliens weren't just attacking. They were testing. They seek a specific genetic marker. Marco processed the information faster than Alina could comprehend. An adaptation sequence that exists in less than 0.1% of the human population. Alina understood suddenly. Her parents' research, the mysterious genetic modifications, the coordinated colony attacks, it was all connected. Outside, alien vessels began to converge on their location. But something was different. Marco's presence, his modified genetic structure, was sending out a signal, a challenge. "We're not just surviving," Marco said. "We're evolving." The first strategic counterattack began not with weapons, but with information. Marco's enhanced systems began to hack the alien communication networks. Not to destroy, but to understand, to infiltrate. Alina watched in awe as her creation, part human, part something entirely new, began to dismantle the alien invasion's strategic infrastructure. Quantum communication pathways collapsed. Navigation systems became compromised. The aliens' perfect invasion began to show its first critical weaknesses. A transmission burst through their systems. An alien communication, now translated by Marco's enhanced capabilities. Unexpected. Adaptation beyond projected parameters. They weren't just fighting anymore. They were rewriting the rules of engagement. As the Martian sunset painted the destroyed landscape in shades of blood and rust, Alina Rodriguez realized they had crossed a threshold. Humanity's real power was stirring, and the universe was about to learn a fundamental lesson. The aliens had a fatal flaw. They understood complexity, but they couldn't comprehend chaos. Humanity was chaos incarnate. Marco's infiltration of the alien communication networks had transformed from a tactical maneuver to a full-scale assault. The modified genetic structure Alina had created was more than a weapon. It was a living, evolving intelligence that moved through alien systems like a virus, rewriting their fundamental understanding of warfare. Across the solar system, human colonies, thought destroyed, began to reactivate, not through traditional communication, but through a quantum network that Marco was constructing in real time. Each surviving colony became a node, a potential weapon, a point of unpredictable resistance. The alien fleet, once a model of precision and overwhelming force, now found itself fighting an enemy that defied all predictive models. In the Valles Marineris outpost, Alina worked frantically. The vault her parents had hidden contained more than just research. It was a blueprint for human survival that went beyond anything the scientific community had ever imagined. "They're not just invading," Elena muttered, analyzing the data streams. "They're harvesting." Marco's enhanced perception translated the alien communications. The truth was more complex than invasion. They were searching for something, a specific genetic marker, a potential hidden within human DNA that represented something far more valuable than any planetary conquest. The first wave of the counterattack began subtly. Communication disruptions, navigation system collapses, strategic points of alien infrastructure simply failing. Then it escalated. Human colonies that had been thought destroyed began to show signs of life, but not in any way the aliens could predict. Terraforming equipment transformed into weapons. Mining lasers became precision strike systems. Atmospheric regulation networks became communication warfare platforms. Elena realized the true genius of her parents' preparation. This wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was a species-level evolutionary trigger. The alien fleet began to fragment, their perfect mathematical approach to warfare collapsing against the pure, unpredictable nature of human adaptation. Marco stood at the center of a holographic display, his body now a living interface between human potential and technological evolution. Each movement sent cascading waves of disruption through the alien network. "They never understood," Marco said, his voice a combination of computational precision and human emotion. "Survival isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation." The Martian landscape became a battlefield unlike any in human history. Colonies thought destroyed rose like phoenixes, each one a node of resistance, each one transforming the very nature of their environment into a weapon. The aliens had chosen the wrong species to underestimate. As the first alien mothership began to break apart, Elena looked at Marco, no longer just her research assistant, but the first of a new kind of human weapon. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to redefine what it meant to be human. Silence descended across the solar system. The alien fleet, once a model of technological supremacy, had been reduced to floating debris. Fragments of massive ships drifted between planetary orbits, a testament to humanity's unexpected resilience. Elena stood at the observation deck of what remained of the Valles Marineris outpost, Marco beside her. But beside was no longer an accurate description. Marco was both more and less than human now, a living bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. "They were testing us," Marco said, his voice a complex harmony of human emotion and computational precision. The data from the alien communications continued to stream through his enhanced consciousness, not an invasion, an evaluation. The vault of research Elena's parents had hidden contained the final piece of the puzzle. Humanity was part of a larger cosmic algorithm, a species-level experiment designed to test evolutionary potential. The genetic marker the aliens sought was more than a simple biological curiosity. It was a key, a potential pathway to a form of existence that transcended current understanding of life, technology, and consciousness. Elena's modified scanner displayed fragments of alien communications. Their initial assessment of humanity had been catastrophically wrong. What they saw as a primitive species was actually a dynamic, adaptive life form capable of rewriting its own limitations. "We were never just the target," Elena realized, her fingers tracing the holographic data. "We were the experiment. The colonies that had been destroyed were not casualties. They were trials. Each attack, each invasion vector was a test of human potential. The genetic modifications weren't just a defense mechanism. They were an evolutionary trigger." Marco's body was living proof. Part human, part something entirely new. A prototype of potential. Across the solar system, other modified humans were emerging, not through a coordinated effort, but through the same evolutionary impulse that had saved them. Colonies thought destroyed were rebuilding, not as they were before, but as something new. The first interstellar communication came not from Earth, but from the modified colonies, a message that was part data, part emotion, part something entirely unprecedented. We are ready. The aliens had come looking for a weapon. Instead, they had triggered humanity's next evolutionary step. Elena looked at Marco, then out at the damaged Martian landscape. The destruction was complete, but so was the transformation. "What happens now?" she asked. Marco's response was both a smile and a complex data stream. "We evolve." The solar system, once a battlefield, now became a cradle of potential. Humanity had not just survived. It had transformed. And the universe would never be the same.